If you don't know your numbers, you don't know your business. I learned this the hard way with my first company, so I created Netsuite, the world's #1 cloud business system. Netsuite gives you the visibility and control you need to make smart decisions and grow with confidence. That's why companies who use Netsuite grow 3 times faster than the S&P 500.
Schedule your free product tour right now.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Digital Leader Show, where we talk key issues and news at the intersection of business and technology in hopes of making you a better digital leader. Today, we're discussing the Me-cosystem, how to create a one-person billion-dollar business, plus headlines for digital leaders from the world of enterprise technology. We're live every Wednesday at noon Eastern, 9 Pacific on LinkedIn and YouTube, and the audio recording is available the following week wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks to our sponsor, Oracle NetSuite, their cloud ERP solution helps provide real-time visibility into operational and financial performance. ERPA AI members can get preferred pricing of 45% off. Just go to erpaai.com/NetSuite for more information. I'm Dan Goodstein. I head up ERPA AI and the Digital Enterprise Institute, a professional association, media, and peer-to-peer research network providing education, networking, advice to over 130,000 members globally, all around automation, enterprise AI, and digital transformation. My co-host today is Kieran Gilmurray. He's a senior analyst to ERPA AI, author, and industry thought leader. And Kieran, today you're actually our guest as well as our co-host. You're our subject matter expert. So let me give you a proper introduction. Kieran is a globally recognized authority on AI and automation, having authored multiple influential books and hundreds of articles that have earned him prestigious accolades, including being named a top 50 global thought leader and influencer on Gen AI, best LinkedIn influencer for AI and marketing, top 50 global thought leaders and influencers in manufacturing, and top 14 people to follow in data. Kieran, that's a long list, buddy. Congrats on all those accolades I always forget about because I know you personally. I just think you're just Kieran.
I still am. Yeah, no, look, delighted to get all that. Years ago, I started writing because I got frustrated that there wasn't good quality information out on the network or on the online. You ended up paying a fortune for it. And I've been really fortunate that ever since I've started to write books and articles and everything else, that people kind of like it, which is kind of cool. Now, if you don't, that's okay too, because you and I know, Dan, you and I have some great arguments. Do you know what I mean? And that's what this should be about. It shouldn't be one person's view of the world. It shouldn't be one algorithm telling us what to do. It should be a heck of a good debate between people who can disagree and still have a virtual drink afterwards, because you and I need to actually meet in person someday.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, listen, Kieran, you're one of those guys that, has the great accent, but also the smarts to back it up. It's not just an accent. So we
I'll
like
take
that.
the accent. I'll take that.
So listen, man, every week I say headlines are crazy, but listen, headlines are crazy. I mean, I think DeepSeek just crashed the internet. It certainly crashed the stock market in the US yesterday. For those of you living under a rock, they've launched this cost-effective AI assistant. It's threatening the big U.S. giants just days after President Trump said, the U.S. is going to be an AI leader and, was bragging about $2 trillion of AI investment. And not only did all the tech stocks get killed yesterday, although some of them have bounced back. Monday, some of them bounced back yesterday. NVIDIA lost 17% initially, like $600 billion with a B in market cap in just one day. I think they bounced back maybe 7-8% yesterday. Crazy.
Yeah, isn't it a bit nuts? Remember the days we used to talk about millions and then tens of millions found big and then hundreds of millions. Now we talk about they lost 600 billion and nobody batted an eyelid. This is amazing for me, I think, Dan, not just the fact that President Trump turned around and said, we got 500 billion we're going to invest in data centers. And then there was questions about that. And I have to love Microsoft's leader went, I'm good for 80 billion. That's a phrase you want to drop at any party. Not I'm good for the taxi home or a round of drinks, but I'm good for 80 billion. But this is amazing because I think there was a mixture of a couple of things here. Apart from the fact that they went, look, you don't actually need $10,000, $40 NVIDIA chips. Just get a couple of hundred or a couple of thousand. We'll do that one. You don't have to. And this is the proposition that all of the big companies have went out with to stock markets and the markets. Like, you have to invest in big data centers, tons of, of GPUs and whatever else. And now DeepSeek, when it come along, went, lol, no, you don't. We'll just take existing technology. We'll do all that for about 6 million. And people started to question the 6 million. Let's say it was 10 times that and it was 60 million. It doesn't matter. No. It isn't 500 billion. It isn't, hundreds and hundreds of millions. So I'm not surprised the stock market has got a little bit spooked by this. But this is tech sector. This is innovation at its best. Then the other bit I seen was, and again, maybe it's slightly different, but what I would describe as the rhetoric was, anti-Chinese. So again, from a European perspective, it never ceases to amaze me when the US do AI. Everybody's happy when China does it and introduces something. It's, oh my God, it's not right, it's not proper. So from a European perspective, this has been fantastic sitting on the sidelines.
Oh, I love getting the European perspective of how insane we all are on the other side of the pond here. But no, so where are you on this? Because I've seen reporting, of course, right, on both extremes, right? From people saying, hey, the Chinese government didn't even know about this thing. The president of China went to visit the company when they made the announcement because he didn't even know about it. And it's just, I saw IBM even today is talking about putting it in Watson X, and so you can do it in a secure way. And it's great technology, and it's going to change the AI industry. And then on the other side of that spectrum, people like Kevin O'Leary, Shark Tank guy, coming out and saying this is an overt Chinese government attempt to mitigate losses with TikTok, and there's like 3 other Chinese apps that have gone gangbusters, and so much so that they actually, this company DeepSeek has reported malicious attacks. They temporarily restricted user registrations outside China, but that's just after they had 2.6 million downloads across platforms, surpassing ChatGPT. Where are you on that spectrum?
Yeah, maybe a personal opinion apart from, if you had a set of popcorn and a large Coke, you could go, brilliant innovation. Chinese dominance of the world. We're still winning. Actually, we can do this for 6 million. So it's who knows what score it is. But look, from I give it personal perspective, it is, look, this is open source. That's the phenomenal thing about this. So it's not a case of, look, we're like, let's compare it to OpenAI, Claude, or whatever else, Perplexity, look, hidden, not available, not telling you what they're doing, not opening up the hood. This is technology they have taken from, Llama or other examples, open sourced it, gave all the code away, said, do what you want to do. And then they went, look, well, that said. And then we had to find another fault was the data is going to end up in China. So OpenAI's servers aren't in the US. And then we've forgotten Snowden. I just believe that every government around the world wants a competitive advantage. And AI is one of those potential things that could be not only economic, but definitely a military advantage as well, because the whole host of uses. So I'm not surprised there's a little bit of, what you might say is contention. My biggest fear is that we end up in an AI arms race. So rather than technology, and 6 million is still a big number, but technology costs come down. Can you imagine now that this software, this tool, if it is as good, and seemingly it scores as good in some maths and some others, but if you can build this and give it away. So companies, corporations, governments, big business can now suddenly have technology that might allow them at an affordable price to transform the world for humanity's sake, not just for a particular country's sake. That's what I hope and pray. So despite sitting in the sidelines, giggling away, watching all this unfold, I just hope that we're sensible. We have great business, great innovation, but we use AI to benefit humanity, not just 1 or 2 individuals. So let's see how it unfolds. It certainly won't be boring.
Yeah, and that term arms race has been used way too lightly in the last year or two, but it really is becoming an arms race. I mean, the U.S. government is now contracted with Microsoft and OpenAI for what they're calling kind of top secret use. There's 26 new products that Microsoft has received authorization for in its secret cloud environment. So you can imagine what those things are going to be used for. So how do you avoid, like you say, kind of like a nuclear arms race kind of thing where you say, hey, well, we're just doing this because the other guys are doing it and we got to be ready, and then it just escalates and escalates, right?
Yeah, it's a pity. It's a bit like the last time, isn't it? I have to say this, Dan. Let me jump out of this just momentarily. If I read the news, and let's not pretend the European, Irish, or British news, and I get to see all of these, and then see, Middle East news as well, if I'm there, they all have their own viewpoints. They're all subjective. We as individuals are all subjective beings. And the greatest thing that causes distrust is ignorance. And I don't mean that in a rude way. If you believe everything you would read, I'll say this tongue in cheek, all Irish people just spend all their time drinking every day. You know what I mean? And the crack is mighty. All Americans don't know where, a part of Europe is. And you go, well, I haven't got a clue where half of America, there's so many tropes and cliches and something else. And I have to say, everywhere I've went in the world, I have met amazing people. And I am fortunate to get to travel it. Next month I'll be in Amsterdam, Mauritius, Riyadh. I was on to Dubai this morning. You and I talk regularly. I'm on and off to London. There's just gorgeous people everywhere in the world if you're willing to listen and communicate. It's ignorance. It's not talking to people. It's tropes. It's fear. It's believing everything that's presented to you instead of you actually, trying to learn these things yourself that might open your eyes. I on this one, though, I suspect AI is amazing. I was a chief head of AI for 10, 15 years ago. And I still am in AI every single day. When I can see what it can do and the benefit it can bring, if you can get this right, you will get a competitive advantage. And that's every government's right, and that's every firm's right. Although I do laugh, just as I say, we're talking about the secret lab and the secret projects, the secret number of the project. That ain't so secret, folks. At least do a better job of keeping the secret secret. Don't tell me what you're doing. That might help it. But look, I suspect there are companies everywhere doing all sorts of ththings, be it AI, be it innovative business methods, be it how they train their people, next generation tech, good luck. As long as, it creates a very innovative set of economies, as long as mankind, womankind, they kind benefit, I'm for all types of innovation and invention. It's just when we mistrust each other, that's when we all start to go into our own little holes. They end up as dark places. And to be honest, if you remember the Cold War, absolutely no one benefited. So pray that we don't go back there.
Well, and to your point about biases, right? You tend to have these, in our case, U.S. perspectives, right? In other cases, maybe Chinese perspective. There's another story, which I'm not saying it wasn't reported, but I didn't see it initially, and someone sent it to me, and it was actually reported by the BBC, where LinkedIn was accused of this privacy issue. So there's a U.S. lawsuit filed on behalf of LinkedIn premium users, accusing the platform of sharing private messages with other companies to train AI models. According to the report, in August of last year, they quietly introduced this privacy setting, automatically opting people into a third-party data training. And then also that a month later, they tried to hide it by changing the policy kind of retroactively. So it's not just Chinese companies doing this, right?
How anti-American are you? Your next minute you have about 1,000 people on Twitter ranting. Look, let me do one slight bit of bias here, just for everybody's information. My wife works for the BBC, so I'm going to declare that up loud before anybody digs into my miserable bank account and very small Twitter following. But look, as I know, the BBC have hugely rigorous standards. There isn't a day my wife goes, no, that wouldn't make it through. That wouldn't make it through. So I'm going to assume this is real, and I'm going to assume, editorial standards have been followed. And you go, oh my, if this was a company in China, the amount of publicity it would get would be phenomenal. But it's okay, it's LinkedIn, so just bury it. LinkedIn always amazes me because it's a double-edged sword. Like, I adore it. That's how you and I met. We've access to some of the most amazing people in the world working out in it today. and LinkedIn, can be the greatest pain. I think I've been banned about 5 or 6 times. What I was doing, I don't know, because we're not telling you. You can fill in a form, but we're not actually saying 2 or 3 weeks later, back you come, but we're not telling you. The privacy things have been done before. That it's not the first time this has happened. Never mind LinkedIn. So let's not be biased on LinkedIn. We mustn't forget Cambridge Analytica. And you can't forget there's a whole world of data brokers around buying data from every company. And go back to the old cliche, there is nothing free in the world. So all of our social media, all of our Google, all of our Windows, all of our WhatsApp, it ain't free, folks. We are the product. So if something like this happens, it doesn't surprise me in the slightest. The amount of money that goes into lobbying in the EU now is phenomenal to try and get around the EU Act or to mitigate or whatever. So like, quelle surprise, not surprise in the slightest. But do we care? As individuals, we want massive personalization. We see these stories, and let's be honest, you and I aren't going out on the street with a sign. The companies are too big. We're talking about, a company's been bigger than economies. So somewhere along the line, we need good investigative journalism. We need some element of regulation just to keep people, for want of a better phrase, honest. But let's be honest, we live in a capitalist economy. The idea is innovation, growth. You're there to make profit. Somehow you need to balance that out. I'm glad I'm not the person making the rules, because I don't know if I would get it right. But again, shock horror, not the first time, won't be the last time. I'm not saying that in a blasé extent, but I look at what I give LinkedIn every day, and I'm going, you need to pay me, not ban me. Let's see. Yeah. Hasn't happened yet.
So I got one more headline for you, but it's a good kind of lead into our main topic today. Amongst the long list of executive orders that President Trump signed within days of coming into office, one of them was an overhaul on the federal U.S. workforce. One of them was mandating workers return to in-person work. But the goal, according to a Wall Street Journal op-ed by Vivek Ramaswamy, was actually to cut workforce, force resignations from government agencies. And it's no surprise, right? Private companies are kind of back on this return to office train as well. Amazon, JP Morgan, AT&T are just a few that are, demanding workers return to, in person 5 days a week. Although I've seen some other data where there's some exceptions to that. If you are have exceptional talents and skills or a proven record of exceeding performance quotas, you're often exempt from these mandates. But still 75% of U.S. adults are working remotely, at least some part of the time, and almost 50% have said, according to a Pew Research Center survey, that they wouldn't stay at their current jobs if they couldn't work from home.
Yeah, I'm going to use the words I hate to say, I told you so. But if people genuinely go back through my LinkedIn, I wrote ages ago, look, at one stage it was far too common for businesses to force everyone to come into the office. And what they were doing is basically saying, we don't trust you. We're not willing to put the tech in place, because the tech was there. Let's be honest, way before COVID, all the tech, everything was there, but they just didn't trust their staff and didn't have the nuts, the cojones to actually say that. Now, mine is hire right. And you don't need to worry about your staff. You and I, Dan, if we went into business, don't forget managers, don't need it to tell us what to do and make, to do a really great job. We're working. So again, hire right first and fix the symptom. But I said at the time, because it went too far to one side at one stage, of course, employees come in, had all the rights, and it went far too far the other side. It doesn't matter about the business, communication, onboarding, teaming. It's not to say you can't build these at distance. You really can, but it went too far. So now we're maybe, going back too far in the opposite direction. I wish it was settled a little bit. For me, I would say, look, give everybody all the technology they need to do their job. We all work slightly differently. Hire the right people, because they'll deliver the job without you having to supervise and sit on them all day. But, we're in a different world. You can hire the greatest talent in the world from, not just 17 miles down the road, but hundreds and thousands of miles away. Don't just give people the tech and not the training, because too often I've seen organizations, and I'll not name them, but to save the embarrassment, you have to come in 3 days a week. The only people who weren't coming in with the leadership team 3 days a week statistic. Right. The second one was come in 3 days a week, and people are complaining, but I'm just doing what I always did. I'm WhatsApping or I'm Zooming or Teaming someone who's 2 floors down. Nobody taught us COVID. Nobody taught us to deal with the repercussions of COVID. And I'm still seeing a lack of training inside a business to say, look, why don't we organize ourselves a little bit better? Why don't we actually be fair to each other? But it is a business and we have to earn money. And therefore, it's not about, being fair means do your laundry, sort the dogs out and do everything else. And then if you could do a bit of work, that'd be great. We'll all wait for you. It has to be some element of balance in there. That because the numbers, you need the numbers to make some money to pay some wages, but you need to get that right. But let's teach people how to use the tech. If we are in the office, let's make sure there's an activity or we're teaming or we're doing something where we're genuinely bonding, genuinely innovating or doing something, not just tell them to stay home, don't give them any training, tell them to come in, don't give them any support. And all it's going to do is lead to multitude of conflict. So how do we actually have an adult-to-adult conversation to make all this work? And normally hire the right adult, this is easy. Hire the wrong adults, and it's just hard every day.
Yeah, but I'll tell you, and this here, this kind of brings us to our main topic, right? It's created this new world, right, where people are working at home. They're arguably less loyal to the companies who are, being oppressive about the way that they work, right? I've had conversations with people I will also not name who, kind of acknowledged that their people were going to work, from home, but had ridiculous levels of restrictions on them, and the attitude was, hey, if they're on my payroll, I don't want them doing all those other things, right? But it has created this, second revolution of the gig economy that we've talked about in the past, right? Where people have side hustles and other projects, or at least kind of multitasking between different projects and maybe even companies. And then the Gen AI thing happens, right? So tell me about this Me-cosystem. I like this term.
Yeah, I go back one, Gen AI. Imagine those people wanting, not bullied at work, wanting promotion, wanting to do meaningful work. Imagine wanting a work-life balance. You selfish lot. You've got this so wrong. Much better to go back to our day. Yeah, look, I wrote this article a little while ago called The Me-cosystem, and annoyingly, our friend Mr. Altman wrote it at the same time. I'm going to argue I wrote it first. I probably didn't, but I didn't see his. What it's basically saying is, look, we have all the technology in the world now, including agentic AI, which are essentially digital workers, or you might call it to a degree RPA with an LLM in the background. And what's being described here is actually you and I, how many people do we actually need in our business? So I do consultancy, I do thought leadership, branding work, whatever else. Behind me is finance teams, marketing teams, digital teams, the whole lot to guarantee good quality work. But let's say this. So I want to generate leads. Why don't I go to a piece of software? And I'll call out a couple of names. I'm not recommending these. I'm not saying I'm not recommending them. Go and find the technology that suits you to solve your business problem. But Bland.ai can do SDR work as good as anyone else. Go to eselfie.ai and you can put a visual AI in front of you and it'll answer every question you want about your marketing, your finance, your HR. It'll deliver training for you. I can go in and go to, Substrata and a whole lot of others where I can actually record myself, my video, take an image of me, translate all of my learning courses in AI and data and leadership into Spanish and German and French. And I can go out and put that online behind a whatever paywall, firewall. And then I can get my SDR to go out and reach out on LinkedIn and then connect to a whole pile of audiences and do this. And then you can pay me. And then my bots can suddenly take care of this. So if I can build a 10 million, 20 million pound business by using agents, and it's not that I don't want people. I like hiring people. I like working with people. I don't want to find myself like Mr. Wilson on the island beside me here talking to a statue because I'm lonely. I want to hire people, but my job as a leader in a business is to put the most efficient, productive, 24/7 digital enterprise that I can in place because I can, because I want to, and because I need to economically. Now businesses, and you have to be careful here because we had RPA hype, now we've got agentic hype. And just today, that was interesting, the International Labour Report came out, or the International AI Safety Report, and they're saying, look, in the section on labour markets, the report says the impact on jobs will be profound if agents get their way. The World Economic Forum came out with a report the other day saying, between 43 and 90% of jobs are going to get impacted by AI. We have to be careful with the hype. But this technology in terms of, AI and generative AI and RPA and agentics and intelligent automation and visual AI and conversational AI and everything else, it's there. It's been there for a couple of years. The only thing we're limited by is our imagination and our willingness to put this in place. So I hope to see someone or some small team building a hugely successful company with all of these technologies that are now freely available to demonstrate to everyone else just how simply it can be done. I'm not saying it's simple, but it isn't as complex as it might have been to build AI and build a one-person business as it might have been in 1956 when McCarthy went to Dartford and invented the phrase artificial intelligence. But you need people and great tech to make a great business.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of interesting things there, right? But I was actually on somebody else's podcast this morning, and it was one of these things where they asked me, what advice I would give to an 18-year-old today, and questions like that. And one of the things I said was, there's never been a better time in history to start a business, right? I mean, you think about, my father's generation, my grandfather's generation, the average, person couldn't start a business without, a bunch of capital, a bunch of partners, a bunch of backers, probably a bunch of experience that they may or may not have had. And now, like you said, you have all the tools at your disposal. I mean, not only could you create your own, business, Me-cosystem, individual, but you could do it from your house. You can do it from, from your bedroom, from your garage. And perhaps, depending on the kind of business, never even leave the house. So, there's ramifications there, but I'd say that definitely on the positive side, I hope it becomes, something where it empowers and enables people to not stay in a job that they hate for their entire lives, to not necessarily stay loyal to a company that's not being loyal to them. I'm not saying everybody should quit their jobs and not be in the corporate world, but, if there's not any reciprocity there, if the company is, forcing everybody to take a pay cut or move across the country on, 27 days notice, maybe you rethink that, right? Maybe you don't have to be, beholden to the traditional, structure that we had in a pre-AI world and a pre-COVID world and the olden days.
The olden days, what, 4 years ago? Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because the world has changed. If you look at what was the case, a decade or two ago, Dan, you went to college, went to university, your worth was the amalgamation of the knowledge that you could collect and retain. Now we've got AI and ChatGPT and Claude and Bing and Bard and Perplexity. And I'm not saying they're perfect. They're far from it and all the risks and everything. But look at the trajectory of where we're going. Now it's not about knowledge anymore that's actually valuable. It's about, the ideas that you have, your creativity, your imagination, your ability to combine, tech and people and everything else together. And we're not talking about locally. We're talking about globally. So I give you an example. My son has started a business. It's his 7th or 8th business, and he's 19 or 20. All of these businesses have been digital, online, and he's, on Facebook Marketplace, on eBay, on all these. He's looking at statistics. He's looking at purchase patterns. He's buying products. I can't tell you what it is because he won't allow me to tell anyone else. But, yeah, and he's making good money.
Hold on, he hasn't even told you, Kieran. He's keeping you in the dark.
He boot me out of his first business, by the way. Good man. He learned from his mom. But it's, he's learned all these statistics. He's learned buyer behavior and psychology, and he's dealt at distance. And you sort of look back and go, oh my God, how did you learn all these things? And then you sort of work your way back and you go, in the world, there's over 3.5 billion gamers. That's more than the movies, more than television, more than whatever put together. And you realize all then have been taught to communicate internationally. I remember saying to my other son, he says, yeah, I'm talking to Juan from Mexico. And I'm going, you what? He was on his headset playing in a team with others. They bought virtual goods. They navigated, difficult situations, multinational currencies, multinational personalities and cultures. That generation is bleeding through the workforce. So why wouldn't they?
And they get education. They get education the same way, right? I mean, I remember 20 years ago speaking to a friend's son who had taught himself to play guitar without a single instructor just on YouTube. And this is 20 years ago, right? Imagine applying that to the business world or whatever your area, your business area of expertise is going to be without traditional education, right?
No, it's not to knock teachers because I'm an ex-teacher and I adore them, and the right teacher can get you in the right place. But my other son will. And he's sitting there with a, a large screen. On one side, he's got ChatGPT and all the LLMs, and he's not asking it to give him the answer, not learning it. He's asking it to deconstruct it, and he's asking him the reasoning why. He's got YouTube open here, and he's doing his mathematics, A level, and he's learning just but all of these different tools. So he's using what's available, but here's my thing. Look, they've learned a lot of this themselves. It's not been at school, and that's not a criticism of teachers, because we're not actually, giving our teachers and our schools the education and funding they need to be as digitally literate as we might, or AI. But we're going into work, Dan. I don't know about you, but I could count on less than one half of a finger the numbers of companies that I've went into that went, great to see you, Kieran, by the way, we're now going to career path you for the next 10 years to stay with this company. We're going to look at future tech. We're going to invest in you. We're going to do innovative leadership and technology. So we have to be careful here that we're excited about Gen Z, Gen Alpha, Gen Beta coming through now, who will be and are true AI natives. And then we forget everyone else in work. They're not worthwhile. They're old. They don't know it. We need to bring the generations with us. Otherwise, we're going to end up in a very poor economy, because there isn't enough workers and there isn't enough productivity in Europe, at least, to allow us to achieve all the things we want to achieve. So we're really going to have to rethink this. And then I think as well, and this is where we go back to DeepSeek, which is why I like it. Sometimes technology is about affordability. And therefore, I look in some of the schools where I'm near, and you need a £500 iPad or whatever, to actually get hold of your homework, because it's built online and the lessons are online. What if you can't afford $500? And by the way, that's a lot of people. And therefore, what you're saying is actually now we're going to create digital haves and digital have-nots through an education and affordability system. And that's really something we got to look to, because, as everything moves online and everything costs more money, boy, we're really creating one of the biggest social divides we've ever had, except this time it's a digital divide, and that could be more impactful than most things.
Yeah, and I think a lot of this has to do with, education in the traditional sense, but also just people becoming educated. I'm always concerned about any political atmosphere that, pushes an agenda and not a reality. I felt like that, for a long time in the US, both administrations, back to the days of outsourcing, when the Obama administration was bashing outsourcing, and I felt like they either weren't up to speed with what was going on in the world, or just were and were telling people what they want to hear because it's politics, right? But that doesn't help people evolve. I mean, there was stats a couple of years ago that I've mentioned a million times, that the college university system, I think it was 7 or 8 years ago now, was pumping out some of the least employable graduating classes in history. That was before AI, right? So definitely a disconnect in traditional education. As well as I do, in our space, all the RPA companies created their own education and training programs to the tunes of millions of dollars, because they couldn't get people that were, properly educated out of the traditional education systems, really, in most countries in the world. And I think there's a labor thing there, right? You're right. I mean, there's two halves to the labor conversation. You could say, listen, the reality is, it's not going to replace everybody's job, but it is going to limit jobs. You're going to have, you mentioned, SDRs and customer experience. You're not going to need 1,000-person contact center in 5 years. I would argue you don't need it now. So what do those people do? Do they move to higher value tasks within the company, or do they start their own billion-dollar business on their own because they have access to all these tools that 20 years ago they would have had to be working for a big company to have access to?
Yeah, well, let me unpick some of that, because you're right. Look, for $20 a month, I can get access to every tool that I ever need. And the old barriers to entry, which is a big factory, a huge marketing teams, CapEx, or whatever else. Yeah, they're all done away with. Do you know what I mean? Now I go online, I buy all the service I need from GPC, Amazon, Azure, a whole host of others, IBM, name it. I can create my own website. I don't have to wait for a Dell server for 6-8 weeks, and part of it turns up whatever else. I was having that conversation with someone the other night. Immediately I can go out and, advertise online. I don't even need, I could build an MVP, easily. I can actually go and get someone across the country or the world to build an MVP. So I don't really need to do that. But here's where we're going to struggle. And we really do need to look at this as, individually, I own my own career because nobody else has. So I take accountability for all the things I need to know and invest in it. It's cost me a fortune, but it's paid back multiple times over. But we need the employer, we need the government, we need educators to work together, because I help design courses. So I help do the financial mathematics course in the local university here. And when you work through the cycle of that, it takes about 2 years to design a course. By the time you've done the faculty meetings, worked out what is needed, and I'm coming in from a business perspective saying, look, this is what I'm projecting happening in the next couple of years. It then eventually gets approved. Then it's a 4-year course. So when you think about it, what was 6 years ago, the 2+4 was the cutting edge of need, has now become the cutting edge of probably tradition or whatever the heck is out of date. So somehow we need to change that. What I'm seeing, and this is for me, an amazing thing, because governments in the UK did away with what we called apprenticeships, which is you go into work, you get real world experience, you meet people who can do the job, you learn to engage with customers and spend money and project plan. And then later on in the week, you went into the education institution to get access to some of the best thinking and meet some of the best creatives or academics and colleagues that you can imagine. I would love to see us doing far more of that. So let's work during the week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, if even, and on a Friday, let's go to college. Let's whatever that be, a technical college, a university, whatever it is, but let's give you the best of thinking and academia and knowledge and cutting edge insights and models and methods. And let's put you into businesses that career path you successfully and grow you not just in, the immediate need, but actually career path you and say, okay, Kieran, Dan, you've started. Great to see here. Love your skills. By the way, we're just going to do an assessment here to see where you're shy for what you currently need. And by the way, in 18 months' time, we see the following trajectory, and you're now going to start to go on your leadership, technical, and financial courses and everything else. And here's a really innovative way to make sure you remain employable, because the fallacy is, there's two fallacies with this AI age. One is, don't worry, as we burn the planet and build huge data centers, AGI is going to cure the planet afterwards. So please be distracted. That's the first one. And the second one is, let's be honest, I'm not going to become a data scientist. I love mathematics. I love what data science can do. But if you ask me to build, a deep neural network and said, don't worry, you've lost your current job, jump into this one, it may just be a while, Dan, and a little trip to a ChatGPT where I come up with something. So that's not possible, and we're not thinking far enough ahead. We're constantly surprised to the market and how technology is impacting us, and we shouldn't be, but we are.
Yeah, I agree with you. And as I think back to that question about what advice I would give a young person, someone in college, or really anybody, right? Anybody who's not like a year or two from retirement, is I think in the next 2 to 10 years. Everyone is going to have an entrepreneurial way of life, mindset, an entrepreneurial, mindset. I mean, and if you think about, what's happened to the job force, the labor force over the last, 60, 70 years. And I've got a graphic I'm going to put together on this, you talk about, again, back to my grandfather's generation. I mean, he worked for his entire career, every day of his career, work life, for one company, right? It was IBM. My dad's generation, my dad probably had 5 or 6 different jobs throughout most of his career, right? Then you take, the younger generations, our generation, the younger generations, I mean, some of them are, you have headhunters calling them. Some of them are changing jobs every 12, 15 months in the pre-COVID era, right? You have this phenomenon, I think, that happened, I would argue big companies kind of lost their loyalty to employees, right? Employees, they stopped, providing the same types of, I mean, when my grandfather was, coming up through IBM, they gave him a house, right? I mean, that's how big that and the local shoes, 2 companies in town, upstate New York. You either worked for IBM or you worked for the shoe company, and they all had houses. I mean, my grandmother had that pension until she passed away a few years ago. I mean, it was crazy, right? So those days are gone. That loyalty is gone. And now I think with COVID, we talked about return to office before. Now it's flipped. Now, not only have companies, employers become less loyal to, employees. Now employees aren't loyal to the companies either, right? They got these gigs, they got these, side hustles. They're working multiple jobs from home. They rather sit at home and, watch daytime TV than report into the office. And I think that's just the reality. So I think, my kids' generation, I think it's going to be, they may not have a full-time job.
Excellent.
They may have a portfolio, right? And work for, 20 different companies, them plus a small team of people or agents, or probably a combination of the two.
Yeah, excellent. Whatever makes you happy. And I mean that genuinely, because I do multi-portfolio and I do fractional CTO work and whatever else. And I enjoy the portfolio of skills that I get to practice. Look, someone who's worked for IBM, brilliant company, by the way, IBM, brilliant company, really good company. Why not? That if they look after each other, and bring huge value to each other, absolutely tick the box. As you say, like when you look at what's coming through now, the access to technology and jobs, and you can work from anywhere. Like, why would you want to do a 9 to 5 where you're frankly bullied, for want of a better phrase, threatened with job loss or whatever else? And, suck it up was a phrase that I heard multiple times. I remember doing 60, 80-hour weeks, for decades. No, that's why I was laughing earlier on about Gen Z, where folks are complaining, hey, you don't want to do 80-hour weeks. We got it wrong. You don't want to get bullied at work. You don't want to get sexually harassed. You want to be treated as an individual. You want DEI. And we got it wrong as a generation. So the fact that these opportunities are available is amazing. And why not? If you can sit there and you can, if this is what excites you and you like, you can make money selling all sorts of products, drop shipping, buying stuff on eBay, buying stuff on Facebook, meet people across the world and earn more than you can earn in your day job in a business, pay tax, of course, please, legally and everything else. Why would you want to do that? I have friends of mine who she literally travels the world, and this is her choice for the last 10 or 15 years, works with the most amazing people, does the most amazing thing, and is the most amazing life because technology allows you to do it. So look, mine is never judge. Do whatever makes you happy. If you're sitting in a job that's making yourself miserable, have that exit plan, and that portfolio career, doing the things that you really like, developing skills, that will serve you well, and working for ranges of companies. I call that kind of like a jigsaw career, and it's your jigsaw. And once you combine all those pieces together, amazing. And those individuals I get excited by because they're creative, because they're entrepreneurial. And I'd rather have one of them in my company for 18 months or 2 years, knowing they're going to exit, because statistically, it doesn't matter what you do, Gen Z will leave after 4 years, than have a rubbish employee. I'm not saying that, I'm sure you're a nice person, but technically rubbish, for 10 years. Do you know what I mean? So you take your pick.
Yeah, I think it's actually, it was when I was growing up, it was the perception.
We're still
out
growing
there,
up, by the way, Dan. We're still growing up, you and I.
That perception of not working for a single entity was considered very risky. I would make the argument that it's actually riskier now, right? The loyalty isn't there. The market's too different. And by the way, while all the work, I'm not just beating up on the big companies. While all of the employees did what they did, during COVID, after COVID, and have all these demands now, a lot of the big enterprises I talk about are not filling those jobs back. They're finding out other ways to get those jobs done because as as a lot of our followers know, the technology's been there for a while. Like, automation and AI existed before ChatGPT. Now it's, at another level, but it's existed for a while. One of the biggest levers, or one of the biggest hurdles for it, was not the technology. It was the culture and the politics around employment, right? So, now, you have a lot of these organizations that are like, well, you know what, maybe we don't need people to do that, or maybe we don't need as many people to do that. And those things are not coming back. So the marketplace is not going to ever return back to, use the term new normal if you want, but it's not going to return to the way it was. So I would argue having that, jigsaw career, as you call it, or that entrepreneurial portfolio career approach, I think is actually, less risky than putting all your eggs in one. I mean, I just spoke to a friend of mine. I won't mention the company name, but big Fortune 500 company. She's dedicated a good chunk of her life to it. And they basically just let her go without a whole lot of explanation. Her friend who is in the same company just got let go because they told him there's no more upward mobility for him in that organization. And that was a big blow, right? So I don't know. I've always been an entrepreneurial mindset because that's just the way I'm wired. But I think more and more people are gonna, should, but also are going to have to in the next dozen years, go that route.
Yeah, look, my empathy to your friends. It's happened to me, but I have to say, and this is maybe approach, it was the best thing that happened to me when I got made redundant, because it made me actually not, rethink my career every 18 months. So I need to explain that, was very successful in the business got took over, was very successful, worked 80, 90-hour week, forgot to train, forgot to reinvest in myself. And eventually, 3 or 4 years later, she said the market had moved on, because the shelf life or the half-life of your skills, you get a degree 30, 40 years ago, it would last you 20, 30 years. You could have gone career. Now, whatever skill you got is worth 2 or 3 years. So it taught me to invest in me. And when you think you're in a job and you're secure, you're not. Because again, same thing. I know one of the big four today just walked into an office, laid off, half the team, and we're just not making enough money. It's not that they're not making money. It's just we're not making the other couple of 100 million that we actually require. And then you're sort of going, folks, really, what lesson does that say to anyone who's left behind about your loyalty when you're making billions a year? Like, you're going to lay them off because you're not making an extra couple of 100 million. Not a mission will they stay in any length of time. And I know some people in the business, that's their immediate reaction. But look, there is no job security. Anybody who believes there's job security doesn't exist, because employers can't even offer you that anymore. Because look at our friends in OpenAI and Claude. We've got 1,500,000. Actually, no, you don't need it. You know what I mean? For 6 million, someone else can do the same thing. So the only security or the only assurity is your willingness to invest in yourself. It's your control over your own career. Because I know you and I, Dan, we're looking ahead all the time. What's coming in, what money coming in, what cash is coming in. If money isn't coming in, you and I are putting our head down to get more into the pipeline and more over the line. And I feel more in control than I've ever been in my life, because I've taken responsibility and full accountability and responsibility for my career since I was made redundant 10, 15, 20 years ago or something else. I always sort of say, be hungry. just be hungry. Call it an entrepreneur or whatever else, but everything exists to allow you to be exceptional. The odd person, the only thing I see is a bit of confidence. But look, if you don't believe in yourself, no one else will. So you might as well try and believe in yourself and get stuff done,
So Kieran, what is your, we talked about this kind of portfolio approach, but what is your kind of toolkit look like? Don't mention any names, but, if you think of kind of the types of tools you're using in your day-to-day, how do you recreate this, this one person business? What are your favorite kinds of tools?
Yeah, so look, I have to say generative AI everywhere, and that's an extraordinary thing. But we're only talking about a couple of $100 a month, using research tools, you're using writing tools, you're using grammar connection tools and whatever else. So that helps, output courses, consulting engagements, and whatever else. It isn't that I'm typing into one of these programs, please write me a consulting evidence on the back of this. It doesn't work like that. You're just using a really good tool to augment. But that's only one part of what you and I do. I have cloud-based financial systems, social media, massive platforms, turning up at events, and that's putting in the leather, the shoe leather, as it were, to actually meet people and get to know people and whatever else. So, that now I'm out looking at more automation to go into the business, so that, agentics, and I'm on with 2 or 3 companies at the moment who are actually building agents for me to do particular parts of my business and my particular function. That, and it's not about denying someone a job, but to go back to what you said earlier on, if technology can do it, why wouldn't you do it? So then when I'm spending money on researchers and writers and co-authors and, other people in technology land or whatever else, I'm spending really good quality money on really good value add stuff. So realistically, it's working out. And this is the bit for folks starting their business. It's what you enjoy doing, and hopefully what you enjoy doing, the market actually wants. And then it's putting out for me a premium product, premium writing, premium consultancy, premium, masterclasses and whatever else, and providing immense value on top of that. And that I can do because I have enough, loads of tech that allows me to do more in a day than I was ever capable of doing, to higher quality, to higher output levels than has ever been possible, because I've put these technologies in and taken time to learn them, surrounded myself. So without giving the tools away. It's social, it's cloud, it's in person, it's generative AI, it's agentics, it's automation, it's market researchers around the edges and writers and constructors and everything else. And I actually go through a lot of other companies as well. And they, my multi-portfolio career and my fractional work, that's actually provided by others who've seen what I've done and experienced the quality of it as well. I'm not unique, by the way, in any shape, form, or other. I'm not suggesting, wow, this guy suddenly can do this and no one else can. As you said earlier on, a lot of it's been blood, sweat, and tears to work it out and just deciding, Joe, I've got to do it because the technology's there and the will is there. And I have to say, I've never had a richer career in terms of variety and the people that I meet and the places that I go. I wouldn't swap it for the world. Yeah. The odd time I'm sitting at a particular airport that cancels the flights, I might change that. but the rest of it I adore.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, for me, it's, obviously content creation. And anybody can be a content creator. It brings up this other topic of how do you validate authenticity of content, and how do you determine who really is a thought leader in a world with AI powered content. But from the entrepreneurial standpoint, from the standpoint of having your own business, everybody can be a content creator. Everybody, even the platform we use here, right? Everybody's got a studio. Everybody's got, content creation, text, video, audio, social media management. So that's definitely, for me, that's the obvious one. The one that I think people underestimate is sales and marketing in general, right? The ability to do mass personalization at scale, to be able to create very custom profile-based outreach to your target audiences. Yes, marketing automation, but that's come a long, long way. And you mentioned AI, SDRs. We're tracking some tools that, are outperforming people. And by the way, when I say outperforming people, it's the typical people thing, right? You get 80% of your productivity out of 20%, of your people. So if you can replicate, and actually maybe closer to 90-10 in some spaces, right? So, if you can create, part of the reason people love, Zuckerberg loves, this is that, he can take his best 10% of his programmers and replicate that, and scale that up, right? And the subtext is only keep 10% of those people, but more importantly, take advantage of what the top 10% are doing. Same thing's always been the case in sales, right? That 20% of your sales team is doing 80% of your volume. You can now automate a good chunk of that, and not just in the ways you think. Everybody's seen LinkedIn automation. There's a lot of really interesting conversational AI for sales, email outreach, text message outreach, even phone call outreach. So I think that's the area where it's like, well, okay, now I have a business, and yes, I can automate all the finance and accounting, and that stuff has been around for a while, but now I can create content, create marketing, create media. I can basically have a sales and marketing department, an AI-based sales and marketing department. I can have a virtual assistant, as an admin. So you start thinking about it from a department standpoint: sales, marketing, content, media, publishing, finance. You start pulling together all the different pillars of a traditional firm, right?
Yeah, well, this is the bit, and we'll try not to end too controversially whilst lining up. Let's end controversially. I'll use me as the example. My job of getting me fired was my fault. I don't care. You said, well, the employer did. You choose to do what you want to do. All this is there. All this, Dan, has been there. You and I have talked a bit about this for the last 10 years. The technology just get better, cheaper, whatever else, but it's been there. If you don't take accountability for your own career, you're in trouble. Please don't rely on your employer. Please don't rely on anyone else. The one person in life you can rely on is you. And then hopefully you have a close-knit network around the edges to help you out. So you need to learn these tools. You need to use these tools. But to your point, look, I look sometimes at people saying, AI, rubber, whatever. I go, I often write in the bottom of my content, and AI helped produce this because it works, and I agree with what you're saying, the 20%, someone said that's what Musk did. He went into Twitter. Have you noticed any difference when 80% of the workforce gone? No, we just kept the 20. And I'm not suggesting win and fire people. What I'm suggesting is, look, don't wait, do what you and I did. We're not exceptional individuals by any extent. Create your own, set up your own business and use all of this technology. You don't have to use it all day one, but start. But sales and marketing is the rain that makes everything else work. And the fact that if you do automate the life out of all of the back office and everything else, it frees you more time to do that. And if you're really critical in the most gorgeous sense for yourself, once you actually start to look at the things you do every day on a daily basis, week in, week out, you pretty much go, actually, do you know something? If I'm being honest, someone else could do that, or a machine could do that. And if you're in that position, it's time to get a unique set of skills or a forward set of skills that's going to allow you to retain gorgeously employable, so you can do all the amazing things that you want in your own life. I wish everyone success. I never wish anyone harm. And dear goodness, anybody who's been impacted by a job loss, it is like an emotional roller coaster. But you will come out the other end if you just approach it with the mindset, you know something? It happened. I'm now going to fix it. And from now on, I'm going to fix it myself as well.
Yep. Well, if anybody watching is want some more details and just to chat about the tools Kieran uses, the tools I use, I'm fortunate as Kieran is. We've got a large network, over 130,000 members. So if we don't know the answer, we usually know someone who knows the answer. Feel free to book a call with us. It's irpaai.com/networking. You can book a call with us. We're happy to share our advice, our 2 cents. We've also, IRPA's partnered up with a sales agency as well. We've gotten a lot of feedback from members that they're trying to be more targeted, or they're trying to scale up their outreach, do less events, do more targeted outreach and things like that. So this is the agency that we've partnered up with, aisalesagency.org. If you want more information on that, but there's no shortage of resources out there. We're happy to point you in the right direction if it's one that we know, or if we don't, we'll find someone that does.
Excellent. What fun. I wish everyone success.
Kieran, thank you, buddy. Thanks for being the co-host and the guest today. But I really enjoyed the conversation, and we'll be back next Wednesday, noon Eastern, 9 Pacific. If there's anything you're working on, you want some advice, please let us know. Otherwise, check out irpaai.com for more information, and have a great week, everybody.
Brilliant.
Take
Enjoy.
care, Kieran.